Hello, hello, and welcome back to a daily walk with Yahweh. I pray that everyone is keeping cool to the best of their abilities and make sure you're checking in on your elderly people, homeless people, and making sure that your delivery people are doing good as well. Be the light that Yahweh designed you to be in other people's lives, not just in your own. It doesn't have to always be monetary. Sometimes people just need a word and something refreshing to drink. As always, I'm glad you're here. Today, we'll be diving into John 6, where we'll see Yahshua perform two incredible signs. He feeds thousands with just a few loaves of fish, and then he walks on water to calm the fears of his disciples. These aren't just dramatic miracles, they're deeply personal reminders that Yahshua meet us in our need, whether we're hungry for provision or peace in the middle of life's storm. So let's do a recap of John 5 before we dive into chapter 6. In John 5, Yahshua healed a man who has been disabled for 38 years. That miracle stirred up the religious leaders, especially because it happened on the Sabbath. But Yahshua didn't back down. He boldly declared his unity with the Father, saying that he gives life and has the authority to judge. He pointed to multiple witnesses, John the Baptist, his miracles, the scriptures, and even Moses, all confirming who he is. John 5 made it unmistakably clear. Yahshua isn't just a teacher or prophet, he is the Son of Yahweh. So let's bow our heads and invite Yahweh in before we get started. Father Yahweh, thank you for this opportunity to study your word together. We come to you hungry, not just for physical food, but for truth, peace, and purpose. Please open our hearts today as we look at the miracles of Yahshua. Feed us with your word, calm the storms in our souls, and help us to trust you more deeply. In Yahshua's name we pray. Hallelujah. Let's jump right in. John 6, 1 through 2. After these things, Yahshua went over to the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great multitude followed him because they saw his miracles, which he did on them that were diseased. It's quiet, but it's loaded. After these things, life had been full of ministry, confrontation, healing, and teaching. Yahshua takes a moment to cross the sea, a move that seems small but signals something bigger: transition, movement, a shift. He wasn't escaping the people, he was walking in rhythm with the Father, knowing when to step away and when to re engage. That's a lesson for all of us, learning when to rest and when to rise again. And yet, the crowd didn't leave him alone. They followed not, well, the crowd didn't leave him alone, like by himself. They actually followed him, not because they understood who he was, but because they had seen what he could do. They were captivated by the miracles, by the signs, and the outward proof that power was flowing through this man. It's easy to judge them, but we're often the same way. When we follow when life is good, when prayers are answered, when healing shows up. But Yahshua wants more than just things. He's after followers who will stay close even when the miracles slow down and the teaching gets hard. Still, he don't turn them away. He sees them. The hope drawn to hope even if their faith isn't fully formed, and that's what made Yahshua different. He doesn't require perfect motives to extend his love. He meets people where they are, even if they're only there for what they think he can give. He allows the following because this time some of those seekers will become true believers. And that's grace, that's patience, and most of all, that's our Messiah. John 6, 3 and 4 reads, And Yahshua went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. And the Passover of the feast of the Jews was nigh, meaning near. This moment feels intimate. Yahshua steps away from the crowd, not to escape them completely, but to draw nearer to his disciples. He climbs on the mountain, a place that often symbolized closeness with Yahweh throughout scriptures. Mountain is where revelation came from, where the hearts prepared, where prayers was poured out, and here he sits. He doesn't preach, he doesn't perform, he simply sits, present with his disciples, fully aware of what's ahead. The timing is sacred. Passover is approaching, the feast that reminds the people of Yahweh's deliverance, of the blood on the doorpost, of freedom from bondage. That's no small detail. The Gospel of John ties everything to Yahshua's mission as the Lamb of Yahweh. And this note about Passover reminds us that Yahshua is not just performing miracles, he's fulfilling prophecy. Go read Exodus. But it also reminds us that sometimes Yahshua just wants us to sit, to slow down, to get away from the noise and the crowd and just be. Not everything has to be a lesson. Some moments are just about nearness. And when we sit with Yahshua, we often begin to see things different. Not just what he can do, but who he truly is. That's amazing. Sit and listen. John 6, 5 and 7 reads, When Yahshua then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he said unto Philip, When shall we buy bread and that these people may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 penny worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. As Joshua looked up and saw the large crowd approaching, he turned to Philip and asked, Whence shall we buy bread that these may eat? At first glance, it might seem like a straightforward, logistical question, something a leader would ask trying to feed a multitude. But John tells us something deeper. Something deeper was happening. Um, this he said to prove him, for himself knew what he would do. Yahshua wasn't searching for a solution. He was testing Philip's faith, a spiritual vision. He already had the miracle in mind, but he was drawing Philip into the process. He wanted Philip to think beyond what could be seen with human eyes and consider what Yahweh could do. So Philip's response shows us how limited our thinking can be when we face impossible situations. He answered, 200 penny worth of bread is not sufficient for them. Every one of them could take just a little. That was nearly a year's worth of wages. And even then, it wouldn't be enough to give everyone even a small piece. Philip wasn't wrong in his math, but he was relying on logic rather than faith. This moment exposes how often we do the same, looking at our resources and concluding that what we have isn't enough, forgetting that Yahshua himself is standing with us, fully able to provide. That wasn't just about bread, it was about belief. That spoke to me right there. John 6, 8 through 9. And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew, 8 through 9. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, there is a lad here which hath 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish, but are they among so many? Okay, while Philip saw impossibility, Andrew at least brings something. A small boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish is not much. Barley was the bread of the poor, and the fish were likely small, dried pieces, more like sardines than how you say salmon? More like sardines than salmon, but still, Andrew speaks up. Um, he acknowledges what they do have, even though he quickly follows it up with doubt. What are they among so many? It's such a tender moment in narrative that Andrew is caught between faith and futility. He wants help. He wants to believe. But like many of us, he sees the gap between what's needed and what's in hand. And the math just doesn't add up. But this is where Yahshua shines brightest. Brighter than a light. Uh, what we haven't isn't enough. The boy's humble lunch and hands of the master becomes more than enough. And perhaps Andrew's small step to faith, however hesitant, opened the door for the miracle to unfold. Let me stop playing. This reminds us that Yahshua doesn't ask for perfection, just participation. He can use whatever little we're willing to bring, especially when we offer it to a heart that says, here it is, Yahshua. It's not much, but it's yours. Let's continue on with 10 verses 10 through 11 in this read. And Yahshua said, make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down and numbered about 5,000. And Joshua took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as many as they would. Imagine a scene: a a massive crowd, over 5,000 people, and that's just counting the men and women, and children would have made it even more. The sun is dripping lower in the sky, the grass soft beneath them, and the people settle in watching Yahshua. There's a hushed anticipation. No one really knows what he's about to do. Then Yahshua take what little was offered, just 5 loaves and 2 fish, and gives thanks. He doesn't grumble about how little it is. He don't even panic. He simply blesses it, and that's powerful. Yahshua teaches us that gratitude precedes the miracle. He thanks the Father for the small offering, knowing full well it's about to become more than enough. Then he begins to distribute it through his disciples. He could have done it. He could have done it all by himself, but instead he involves them in the miracle. That's how Yahshua works. He partners with us. The disciples whose moment earlier doubted are now passing out baskets of food that never seems to run out. And this moment reminds us when Yahshua, uh, when we give Yahshua what we have, even if it's small, and we thank Yahweh for it, it multiplies it beyond what we could imagine. And more than that, he invites us to be part of the blessing. Let's read John 12 and 13. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves which remained over and above to them that hadn't eaten. Okay, let's just let this settle in for a moment. They were full, they were filled, not just snacking, not just barely enough. Everyone ate until they were full. That alone is a miracle. But Yahshua doesn't stop there. He turns to his disciples and says, gather up the leftovers. Why? So nothing is wasted. That tells us a lot about his character. Yahshua is abundant. He never careless. He provides more than enough, and yet he's also mindful of stewardship. And when they gathered the pieces, they didn't just get a little, 12 baskets were filled, one for each disciple, perhaps, a personal reminder to each one that what seemed impossible just minutes ago became more than enough in Yahshua's hands. Imagine each disciple holding their own basket, probably in awe, maybe speechless. It's like Yahshua is saying to them, you didn't think it would be enough, but look at what I can do. This is how Yahweh works. He takes what we surrender, multiplies it, satisfies every need, and then give us back more than we started with. Nothing is wasted, not the bread and not our trust in him. That's amazing. Amazing. 14 and 15. Then those men, when they had seen the miracle that Yahshua did, said, this is of truth that prophet that should come into the world. When Yahshua therefore perceived that they would come and take him by force to make him a king, he departed again into a mountain himself alone. After witnessing the miracle of the loaves and fishes, the people were amazed. It wasn't just food, it was the revelation that hit them. This wasn't ordinary. This wasn't luck or good timing. This was divine. They said this is truly a prophet. A reference to Deuteronomy 18 and 15. 18 verse 15, where Moses said Yahweh will raise up a prophet like him. The crowd recognized something sacred in Yahshua, something royal, something prophetic, but even in their recognition, their response was off. They saw the miracle, and instead of worshiping Yahweh, they rushed to crown Yahshua as king, but on their own terms. They wanted a king who would fill their stomachs, defeat their enemies, and restore political power. They didn't understand that Yahshua came first, not to take a throne, but to transform hearts. Yahshua, knowing their motives, quietly slipped away. He wasn't interested in the kind of fame or leadership that people wanted to force on him. He wasn't there to be made into a symbol of nationalism or temporary provision. He came to reign over souls, not empires. So he withdrew to the mountain alone, a beautiful image of a Savior who chooses solitude with the Father over applause from the crowd. This is reminding us to check our motives. Are we coming to Yahshua for who he truly is or for what we think he should be? Mm. John 16 through 21 reads, and when even was now come, his disciples went down unto the sea, and entered into a ship, and went over the sea toward Capernaum. And it was now dark, and Yahshua was not come to them. And the sea arose by reason of a great wind that blew. So when they had rowed about 25 or 30 furlongs, they see Yahshua walking on the sea and drawing near unto the ship, and they were afraid. But he said unto them, It is I, be not afraid. They willingly received him into the ship, and immediately the ship was at the land where they went. As evening set in, the disciples made their way to the boat and began crossing the sea toward Capernaum. But Yahshua didn't go with them. The sun had set, and the darkness began to blanket the sea, cover the sea. And in that darkness, a strong wind began to blow. The waves grew restless, churning beneath the boat, echoing the disciples' inner uncertainty. Um, they were alone, struggling, rowing against the storm. Can you imagine rowing? But you ain't getting nowhere. Then something unexpected. In the middle of the storm, the through the wind and over the waves, they see a figure approaching, walking on the sea. Not surprisingly, fear overtook them. Imagine being exhausted, soaked, and surrounded by crashing waves, then seeing someone just calmly walking on the very thing that is threatening to drown you. But then Yahshua speaks, It is I. Be not afraid. His voice cuts through chaos with peace. He doesn't calm the storm first, he calms their hearts. And that's so like Yahshua. Sometimes he doesn't immediately stop the storm. Sometimes he steps into it and reminds us, I'm here. And that alone is enough. But we still don't grasp it at times. When the disciples recognize him and welcome him into the boat, everything changes. This text tells us that immediately they reached the shore. Whether that was a miracle of time or just the moment that the storm ceased, we're reminded that Yahshua's presence make the journey complete. There's a lesson here for all of us. The storms we fear, the darkness we face, and the long nights we endure, none of it is outside. He sees us. He comes to us. And when we receive him, we find ourselves exactly where we need to be. As we close out part 1 of John chapter 6, we've witnessed Yahshua meet both the physical and spiritual hunger of the people, from feeding the 5,000 to walking on the sea. we see not only his power, but his presence in the storm. But this is just the beginning. In part 2, we'll explore what Yahshua means when he says, I am the bread of life. We'll see how the crowd's excitement turns to confusion and even offenses as he challenges them to believe not just in what he can do, but in who he is. In this turning point where many stop following him, and the question is asked, will you also go away? Before we go, let's take a moment to reflect on these questions. Has Yahweh provided for you physically and spiritually in times of need? What storms are you in right now? And are you inviting Yahshua into your boat? Do you come to him for what he can give or for who he is? Leave your thoughts or your testimonies in the comments below. I love to hear how this word is speaking to you. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to encourage someone else walking through their own spiritual hunger or storm. I'll see you in part 2, where we go even deeper into Yahshua's identity as the true bread that came down from heaven. Until then, stay blessed, stay rooted in the word, and continue your daily walk with Yahweh. Thank you. Be blessed. Have an awesome week.